It strikes me that we all have this sort of inner space, almost like a hidden room, where certain desires, certain experiences um, get tucked away. Not consciously always, but it's there.
That's a very apt image. Think of it as a chest, perhaps, locked from the inside. It contains those parts of ourselves we've learned to believe are, well, unacceptable, often right from our earliest years.
Yeah.
The no's we absorbed, the disapproving looks, those messages, sometimes subtle, sometimes not, about what is and isn't okay to feel or want.
Absolutely. I mean, I can still recall being told off for getting angry as a kid. The message wasn't really about how to handle the anger, just that the feeling itself was bad, something to be suppressed.
Hmm.
And you have to wonder how many other little moments like that end up in this chest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And each of those moments where a natural feeling or impulse gets shut down, it creates a kind of internal pressure. We learn, basically, that expressing that part of ourselves leads to discomfort, maybe even pain.
So we avoid it.
So we find ways to avoid it, yeah.
Mhm.
We push it out of our awareness, develop strategies.
Which leads to this fascinating idea that even though we're not consciously thinking about these things, these forbidden bits, they're still very much present, influencing us in ways we don't always get.
Precisely. It's like they have a life of their own, just
Yeah.
beneath the surface.
Right.
The energy we use to keep those desires locked away doesn't just vanish into thin air. It often finds other ways out, other avenues of expression,
Yeah.
sometimes in quite surprising or even, well, problematic ways.
Like physical symptoms.
Yes, think about a persistent physical symptom that doctors can't quite explain. Sometimes the body speaks the language the mind refuses to acknowledge.
Yeah.
The mind says no, but the body finds a way.
It's like that famous case, Anna O, right? With her strange physical ailments that seem so connected to her emotional landscape, her repressed feelings.
Her experiences were, yeah, a powerful early illustration of how these unresolved inner conflicts can manifest physically. It really shows how intertwined our minds and bodies are in this whole process of repression.
So there's this constant internal negotiation happening then.
Constantly. On one side, you have the force of our fundamental desires, those primal urges, you could say, the id in Freudian terms.
Right.
And on the other, the internalized rules and expectations, our upbringing, society standards, the superego.
And the self, the ego, is stuck in the middle trying to broker a deal.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It's constantly trying to find a balance to mediate between these often conflicting forces.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act, and maybe the fear of tipping over, of actually, confronting what's in that chest, that can be quite powerful itself.
Oh, absolutely. There's a sense of the unknown, isn't there? A worry about what we might find or what it might mean about who we are.
And that fear is often deeply rooted in those early experiences, the ones where we were told no.
Exactly. What feelings went along with those prohibitions? Shame, perhaps? Guilt? A fear of being unloved or maybe rejected? These emotions become powerfully linked to the desire itself.
Making it even more necessary to keep it hidden.
Precisely. It reinforces the need to keep it locked away.
And that hiding process, those ways we learn to cope with these forbidden feelings, those are the defense mechanisms we sometimes hear about, right? Like actively trying to forget something that makes us uncomfortable.
Yes, repression is a primary one. That unconscious pushing away of unacceptable thoughts or feelings. But it's not the only one.
What else is there?
Well, we might try to rationalize a desire, make it seem logical or okay when deep down we feel it's not. Or we might project our own unwanted feelings onto someone else.
So seeing in them what we can't face in ourselves.
Exactly. Accusing someone else of being greedy when perhaps we're struggling with our own materialistic desires, for instance.
It's amazing, really, the mental gymnastics we perform to avoid facing these things head on. But like we were saying, this doesn't actually make the underlying desire disappear, does it?
Not at all. It just goes into hiding. Think of it like a stream flowing underground. It's still there, still shaping the terrain above, even if you can't see it directly.
So where does it show up then, if it's not disappearing?
Well, these hidden desires can surface in our dreams, for example. When our usual conscious controls are relaxed, symbolic expressions of these longings can emerge.
Interesting.
Even those little slips of the tongue, the so-called Freudian slips, can sometimes offer fleeting glimpses into what's truly occupying our minds beneath the conscious radar.
And it has such a huge ripple effect on our lives, doesn't it? Particularly, I imagine, in our relationships.
Definitely. That unacknowledged longing for closeness, for real intimacy, might paradoxically lead someone to repeatedly choose partners who are emotionally unavailable. It's a way of experiencing the desire without truly risking vulnerability.
Or maybe a denied ambition that could come out as what? Self-sabotage.
Precisely. A pattern of self-sabotage just when success seems within reach. It protects the person from facing the implications of that ambition, maybe the fear of failure or even the fear of success itself.
Wow. So these patterns often just keep repeating themselves until we start to understand where they come from, these unacknowledged parts of us.
That's often the case. That forbidden chest, it really does hold the clues, the keys to understanding these recurring themes in our lives, these reactions we have that sometimes surprise even ourselves.
You can almost picture different compartments within that chest, can't you? Each one holding a different compromise we've made along the way, a little piece of ourselves we've set aside just to navigate the world.
That's a great way to visualize it. And the prospect of opening that chest, of really looking inside, can understandably create a lot of anxiety.
Sure.
It's the fear of disrupting our established sense of self, the worry about what truths might be revealed. What if I find something I don't like?
But it seems so crucial to approach this with a sense of, I don't know, curiosity and maybe self-compassion
Oh,
rather than just judgment.
absolutely. It's about understanding ourselves more fully, isn't it? Like piecing together a complex puzzle. That non-judgmental stance is key.
Because judging just shuts the lid tighter, presumably.
It does. And think about how society itself often requires us to temper our instincts, our desires. We can't always act on every single impulse without facing consequences. Freud wrote about this tension in Civilization and its Discontents.
Right, the idea that civilization requires some sacrifice of instinct.
Exactly. But the issue arises when those natural desires are completely denied, pushed down, unacknowledged. That's when it can lead to internal friction, distress, neurosis even.
So there's this inherent tension then between our individual wants and needs and the expectations placed upon us by the weird.
A constant push and pull.
And that tension can feel like a weight sometimes, a subtle pressure around this hidden part of ourselves. Like these forgotten aspects are trying to make their presence known somehow.
That feeling of weight or pressure is often a really important signal. It indicates the sheer energy being used just to keep those desires contained. And often within that chest lie not just the desires themselves, but also the early experiences, the emotions that led to them becoming forbidden in the first place.
Okay, so when we talk about exploring this metaphorical chest, it's not really about unleashing some kind of uncontrollable chaos, is it?
No, not at all. That's usually the fear, but the reality is often different. It's really about embarking on a journey of self-discovery, of bringing some light, some understanding into those hidden areas.
So it's about awareness.
Exactly. It's about understanding the roots of our behaviors, our automatic responses, those patterns we find ourselves repeating again and again. It's about expanding our self-awareness, making the unconscious more conscious.
So then maybe just acknowledging that this forbidden chest exists within us, recognizing that we all have one in some form, that's a pretty significant first step, isn't it?
It is. It takes a certain amount of courage to even consider its existence, to turn towards it rather than away.
Yeah.
And by starting to acknowledge what we might fear is inside, we begin the process of integrating those disowned parts of ourselves, moving towards a greater sense of wholeness, and maybe even genuine freedom. The simple act of acknowledging it begins to lessen its unconscious hold on us.
Okay, so acknowledging it is step one. But what keeps that chest locked so tightly? What are the locks and chains we use?
Well, that brings us back to those psychological defenses we touched on earlier. They're the mechanisms that maintain the lock, essentially. Repression is the big one, actively pushing unacceptable thoughts or desires out of awareness.
Like trying not to think about something.
But usually unconsciously. So, for example, someone might repress strong sexual curiosity from childhood due to shame, and later in life it might manifest indirectly, perhaps as unexplained headaches whenever intimacy arises, or maybe a pattern of attraction only to people who are completely unavailable. The desire is still there, just disguised.
Okay, so that's repression. What else?
There's reaction formation. This is where you turn an unacceptable desire or feeling into its absolute opposite, often in an exaggerated way.
Like being overly nice to someone you secretly resent?
Precisely. Or excessive, almost smothering devotion that might mask underlying hostility or anger. The outward behavior is the polar opposite of the hidden impulse.
Got it. And you mentioned projection before.
Yes, attributing your own unacceptable impulses or qualities onto others. If you struggle with acknowledging your own ambition or desire for power, you might constantly accuse others of being manipulative or power-hungry. See it out there instead of in here.
It's like a way of disowning it.
Exactly. Then there's rationalization, finding seemingly logical excuses or explanations to justify behaviors or feelings that stem from less acceptable motives.
Like saying you're too old to pursue a passion when really it's fear of failure holding you back.
Or convincing yourself it's impractical to change careers, even if you're miserable, because acknowledging the desire for something more fulfilling feels too threatening. It makes the status quo seem like the only logical choice.
Makes sense. Are there any others?
Sublimation is an interesting one. This is often seen as a more mature defense. It involves transforming forbidden desires or impulses into socially acceptable or even valued activities.
Like channeling aggression into sports.
Exactly. Or intense emotions into creating art or music. The energy of the original impulse is redirected into a constructive outlet. But it's important to remember the underlying desire is still present, just expressed differently.
So these defenses, they serve a purpose, right? They protect us from anxiety or conflict.
They absolutely do. They help us cope, manage difficult feelings, and navigate social expectations. The problem arises when they become too rigid, too automatic, preventing us from acknowledging important parts of ourselves.
And what's the cost of relying too heavily on them?
Well, there's what Freud called the return of the repressed. Those pushed-down feelings and desires tend to leak out anyway, often as symptoms. Persistent anxiety, disturbing dreams, panic attacks, those psychosomatic symptoms we talked about.
So the very things we try to avoid bubble up in disguise.
Often, yes. And these symptoms can sometimes be seen as compromises. They partially express the forbidden wish while also containing or punishing it. A panic attack, for example, might simultaneously express and defend against overwhelming excitement or forbidden desire. Procrastination might mask both a fear of failure and a fear of success.
It's complex, and where does all this start? Why do certain desires become forbidden in the first place?
It goes back to those early childhood experiences, moments of shame, punishment, disapproval, or rejection associated with expressing certain needs or feelings. A child who is constantly shamed for showing anger learns that anger is bad and must be hidden.
That gets internalized.
Yes, gradually we internalize those parental or societal prohibitions. This forms the basis of the superego, that inner critic, the voice that tells us what we should and shouldn't do or feel, often echoing those early messages.
So our personal history dictates what goes into our specific forbidden chest.
Absolutely. What one person represses, another might express freely, depending entirely on their unique experiences and the rules they absorbed growing up.
And does this stuff, these early patterns, show up in our current relationships too, beyond just choosing unavailable partners?
Oh, definitely. That's where the concept of transference comes in. We unconsciously recreate dynamics from our past relationships, especially with significant early figures like parents in our present relationships.
So you might react to your boss like you reacted to your critical father.
Exactly. Or project unresolved needs or conflicts onto a partner or even a therapist. It's like we're trying to replay and perhaps resolve those old scenarios, often without realizing it. These early prohibitions and the resulting hidden desires profoundly shape how we experience and interact with people now.
So it really influences our choices across the board, career, relationships.
Unconsciously, yes. Why are you drawn to certain kinds of people? Why did you choose this career path and not another? Often the answers have roots in these hidden dynamics, these forbidden longings or unresolved conflicts from childhood. Choices that seem logical on the surface might be driven by much deeper unacknowledged forces.
It reminds me a bit of Jung's idea of the shadow too, the parts of ourselves we deny.
There's definitely overlap. The shadow contains those aspects of ourselves, often negative, but sometimes positive potential too, that we reject and repress. And these denied parts can have immense power, sometimes erupting unexpectedly.
Like the strict teetotaler who suddenly goes on a massive binge.
Or the lifelong pacifist who explodes in rage. The more vehemently we deny a part of ourselves, the more power it can accumulate in the shadows, influencing our behavior in ways that seem totally out of character.
So these defense mechanisms, they're protective, but they also limit us.
That's the paradox. They serve a vital function in protecting the ego, but they can also keep us stuck, preventing growth, intimacy, and a full experience of life. The challenge isn't to eliminate them entirely. That's probably impossible and maybe not even desirable.
So what is the challenge?
It's about achieving a better balance, becoming aware of our defenses, understanding why they arose, honoring their protective function, but gradually finding ways to loosen their grip so we can integrate more of what's been forbidden.
Bringing those hidden parts into the light, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about expanding our capacity to tolerate complexity within ourselves, to hold both the desire and the defense, the light and the shadow.
It sounds like these forbidden desires, this whole concept of the chest, really permeates everything then. Relationships, work, how we feel, maybe even our physical health.
It truly does. That chest contains vital parts of who we are: our energy, our creativity, our deepest longings, our vulnerabilities, our history. They might be frightening to confront, absolutely, but they are essential pieces of the puzzle of self-understanding. Ignoring the chest doesn't make it go away, it just ensures its contents continue to influence us from the shadows.